And change is a subject that I know is close to your heart, and education. What have you seen change over the past 8 years since I was first here in 2017?
Change. That's a very interesting and intruding topic. But today we are living in a world where every single day changes. I'm looking back 10 years ago, 2014. Phones were meant for making calls, messages. Today, phones are lifeline of everyone.
You have shared some really interesting academic innovations. So I'd love to hear more about that, and from your students later perhaps.
We have created a very interesting subject. The subject doesn't have a syllabus.
In their local communities and beyond, are there any, some of your favourite stories that come to mind at the moment?
The street dogs on the streets were chasing people, barking at people, and they figured out it is because of the fact that they are hungry and they don't have homes. So these guys came together, created homes and fed them and made that community feed them at a particular time, day in and day out.
I think a lot of people wouldn't know about the way that you've just pursued learning yourself. You're so curious and you've found yourself in some pretty extraordinary places, in deep, rich learning environments. Can you just tell us a little of that journey?
I was not good at studies at one point. The reasons are different. I had a very difficult time because of my dad's health. One thing that I'll cherish always is my meeting with the god of cricket, Sir Sachin Tendulkar.
Hi friends, welcome to Connect with Confidence. This is a very special episode in India, in Coimbatore, GRD College, with Dr. Ram, who was a guest on the podcast in August 2020. So much has changed since then. I'm so delighted to be here. So anything you'd like to share before I start with all my questions?
Thank you. The last time it was when the world was locked down and we didn't keep quiet. We happen to probably have this podcast being recorded from Australia to India. And interestingly, that went well. And today I'm here to face all your questions. Shoot.
Because I think so much has changed in that time. And change is a subject that I know is close to your heart, and education. So let's just start unpacking. What have you seen change over the past 8 years since I was first here in 2017?
Change. That's a very interesting and intruding topic, because the reality of change is either we don't want to change, or we panic about change, or we embrace change. But today we are living in a world where every single day changes. And when you say every single day changes, you have multiple things coming in our foray. For example, phones. I'm looking back 10 years ago, 2014. Phones were meant for making calls, messages. Today, phones are lifeline of everyone. Maybe work in 2014 was 9 to 4 or 9 to 5. Work today is at office, at home, at cafes. If you have Wi-Fi, work is everywhere. Shopping in 2014 was malls on a Saturday as a ritual. In 2025, shopping is in your pockets and you do 24/7 whatever you want to shop. This is one part of a change. On the other side, I think everything around us is changing in a very big way. Very big way when I say, I don't know how many of us go to the banks anymore. How many of them store, listen and retrieve music the way in which we used to? Education is also changing big time. In the sense, I had a very interesting situation. My daughter, one of those days, early morning, somewhere around 7:30, 7:45, when she was about to go to school, asked me this question, Daddy, what is machine learning? And I was reading the newspaper, I was looking at my mobile phone, just took 40 seconds to kind of respond, articulate what I want to as machine learning in her level. And interestingly, before I could even open my mouth, she turned towards Siri and asked, Siri, what is machine learning? And Siri ended up sharing what machine learning in the sweetest, cutest, and the best possible way. So that's the change that we are witnessing. If I'm an education institution and I think the neighboring educational institution is my competitor, if I think I'm a teacher, the next good faculty, best faculty is my competitor. No. Today comes from a variety of sources. I mean, like learning happens from everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, Twitter is as good as an academic, but the difference happens to be how exactly we resonate, stay relevant, and make the teaching or the learning interesting and meaningful.
Yeah, I love that, because I've noticed, because we've stayed connected over the years online, you have shared some really interesting academic innovations. So I'd love to hear more about that, and from your students later, perhaps.
Okay. Well, I constantly try to come out with different ways to engage students and make them to be curious, join hands and learn on their own. That's something that I always wanted and wished to do in education. Have done many interesting things, but all those are milestones or probably today in archives. But the one that is close to my heart happens to be the latest one, where we have created a very interesting subject. The subject doesn't have a syllabus. The subject doesn't have classrooms. The subject doesn't have lectures, assignments, and exams. The learners define what they want to learn and research about it and come with meaningful solutions. We have created a lab called a social lab. Under social lab, we have come up with a very interesting learning quotient where students can take a social issue or a social project and can form a team, or they can do it on their own, and identify the problem, work on the solutions that are there, research about it, and then execute their solution. By doing so, the students get an opportunity to know what the realistic world is all about and look at different kinds of challenges and choose one of it, research about it, talk to people, get a first-hand input on the problem, and then start thinking about the solutions and work towards it and document it and come up and present what they have probably done on that social initiative project. Interestingly, this came up as a thought, then it turned out to be an idea, and the idea came up into a strategy, and today we are running it as a social lab project. But what's heartening is the kind of projects my students have brought in, the kind of solutions that they have probably provided, and today they've embraced that particular learning. And every day I come across students walking into my office sharing what they wish to do on a social initiative project. That's something that I'm pretty impressed, or not, I'll not use the word impressed, I'm pretty interested, and I want to do more in depth on that particular area. So to me, social initiatives or social labs are the next big thing that we could do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you really have, you've put me in front of a few thousand students, this visit and my previous visit, and the passion that they bring, their keenness to learn, and the way that they contribute, I think, is just incredible. So I look forward to hearing some of their stories about what they've been creating to be making a difference in the world, in their local communities and beyond. Are there any, some of your favorite stories that come to mind at the moment?
Well, yes, there are a lot of them. Each of them are unique in their own way. One of the classes went into a orphanage, and normally when people go into orphanage, they try to kind of feed them, or probably they try to spend time with them. But these guys came back and said, well, that place has to get energized. So bring up all the artists together, get the paints and the brush, and they went and revamped the entire orphanage with colorful quotes, to colorful, inspiring thoughts. They have done that brilliantly. Maybe I'll show you what they have done. There is another team that went up and identified something interesting. They found the dogs, the street dogs on the streets were chasing people, barking at people. And they figured out it is because of the fact that they are hungry and they don't have homes. So these guys came together, created homes and fed them and made that community feed them at a particular time, day in and day out. That was something that was quite interesting. And there was another group came up with, they raised funds by conducting a marathon. There was another group came up and said a lot of dogs, stray dogs, get into accidents on the highways because the driver is not aware of that there is a dog that is there. And they in turn identified and promoted a very interesting solution by getting reflector bells on the neck of the dogs. And they went on a campaign to kind of get the dogs to wear the reflector bells. I think every single story is unique. Every single solution is something that's heartwarming because this is identified by the students, worked and have done. And as an academic, I can only be their fan to appreciate whatever they've done. Phenomenal work, guys. You did something spectacular and you are doing something spectacular. And I go all out to probably say whatever you have done wherever I can.
Yeah, I love that. Now, on our previous episode, you shared some of your background story, your growing up, and really the value that you put on education. But last night you shared a story that I think a lot of people wouldn't know about the way that you've just pursued learning yourself. You're so curious and you've found yourself in some pretty extraordinary places in deep, rich learning environments. Can you just tell us a little of that journey?
Somebody who was told while he was in school, during my public exams, during my 10th, that he's not good at studies. Today holds 2 PhDs and 1 postdoctoral. Maybe produced 25 PhD scholars so far, 5 international fellowships. It is not about talking about what I've achieved. No, if I can do it, every single one there can do it. What's your excuse for not doing it? Whatever the excuse might be, education will empower you. Education will make things happen. Education will change your surrounding and atmosphere, and the world will start listening to you at some point, like how it is happening to me now. It is all about education. Now, yes, how did this part of education, where I was not good at studies at one point, the reasons are different. I had a very difficult time because of my dad's health. There was a lot of fear factor that was there. So I got distracted a bit and I came back into education big time. But in reality, I tell all my students, learn whatever you wish to learn and learn it with full heart. Learn it with interest. Don't learn it for the sake of grades. Don't learn it for cracking exams. Learn it to understand. If you want to understand, you don't just learn, teaching is learning twice. Teaching is learning twice. If you are a curious learner, a lot of things will change around you. A lot of things will change in you. My happiness or my curiosity is about learning. My occasion, maybe people say that is education, but learning is my occasion. And today I learn from my students. Maybe when I studied in college, I learned from my professors. When I am an academic, I would say always, whatever I know today is because of my students, their conversations, their stories, their challenges. All of it has made me to learn whatever I know today. So I think if anyone turns out to be a learner with curiosity, learning is happiness.
Yes. And so I was just thinking about that. Was there a specific moment where you switched in your thinking from not being good at studies to that curiosity that drives you to learn?
Well, I was actually good at studies. In between, when I had a difficult situation at home, I got distracted a bit. I was also a good sportsman. I used to play guitar. So I was spending more time on that and less time on academics, purely because somewhere there was a mental block, because people around you kept saying that he is not good at grades. He's not learning the way in which he should learn. But somehow things changed. And I remember once I finished my 10th. 9th, 10th was a disastrous time or a difficult time of life. Then when I turned into +1, things changed. And from there, I learned more out of books. I learned more out of people. I learned more out of traveling. I learned more out of my own interest of learning. And of course, students on an everyday interactions keep making you to learn in different ways. There is nothing to be called as I know it all. But whatever I've done over a period of time, all that is in archives. It's in a milestone. Today, am I relevant? Today, am I able to influence my students, impact my students, resonate with what they want to probably do in life? That is where I think I have a choice to grow.
Yeah.
I'm not in the business of teaching subjects. I'm not in the business of teaching subjects. I'm in the business of making careers for my students.
So as we walk through the college this morning, I see beautiful video footage of face-to-face events. So there was my session yesterday. There was someone from Austrade who came up from Canberra, somebody else 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So you have people visiting and speaking to the students quite often. You're meeting leaders from all over the world. So when did you start doing that? What was the beginnings of face-to-face? And maybe you can tell us about some notable characters that you've met.
Sure. Interestingly, I was in UK in one of those classrooms. This was 20 years ago. And there, the classrooms are 2 hours and 3 hours. It's a long classes. And I was running through a course, and halfway through we had a break, and I was in the classroom and students were moving in and moving out. Suddenly this thought came up to my mind: how exactly does this classroom differs from the Indian classrooms we have? And what I remembered at that point of time was Indian classrooms were very silent. And the classrooms in UK, yes, was also a bit silent. But those classrooms had not less than 14 countries or 14 nationalities in a single class.
Wow.
That was a buffet of cultures, right? And here, that is not the scene. Maybe from a region, from a state, maybe from one particular space. Now, that difference was the first difference I spotted. Second difference that I spotted was the students in the West, in UK in particular, didn't hesitate to ask anything that they wanted to ask in a classroom whenever they had a doubt. Whether the question was relevant, irrelevant, doesn't matter. They just stood up and wanted to probably share their thought and ask. Whereas Indian classrooms, even if you ask them to ask questions, they wouldn't. I'm talking about that point of time. But interestingly, I found students of Indian classrooms were a lot more intelligent. Even though they were silent in classrooms, the intelligence part, the grasping part of what we share is something that was very unique in Indian students. But what was unique in the British students is that they were driven by purpose. It's not British students. A British university where different students come from different places, whichever country they come from, they had a purpose in life. Purpose in the sense they were very clear in what they want to do, and they never hesitated to seek, ask, clarify, and get help if they want to. Because, I don't know, that's because the culture or because the commitment that they've made to come from their native country to that particular country to learn,
Yeah.
They use every minute of their presence there with utmost sincerity. And I will use the word discipline.
Yeah.
Right? These are some of the changes I saw. Now, I wanted to shift the Indian classrooms by making it noisy. Noisy in the sense by asking questions to the teachers.
Yeah.
And then when I came back and spoke about it to my fellow colleagues, it wasn't working the way in which I thought it will work. There are occasions where they came up and said, this subject cannot probably be a two-way street. Students are not very interested to ask questions. Students are not asking the right questions. Those kinds of things came up when we had this discussion. Then suddenly I thought, okay, this is not working. Maybe I can make my classrooms interactive, but it's left to the individual teacher to kind of decide how exactly they approach the course, approach the subject.
Yeah.
So then I thought, well, if we involve students directly, this might change. And face-to-face was invented. And where people who have accomplished something in life would appear on the platform and would probably speak for 10-15 minutes, then followed by Q&A, where students would be given an hour's time to ask anything that they want to. Then we started queuing because a lot of questions came up. Then we said, like, those questions which are getting registered and are getting selected will be allowed to ask. Today, we have finished more than 200 face-to-faces.
Wow.
In campus. And today, India is very noisy. India asks questions. And interestingly, we have hosted the former President of India, to the astronaut Sunita Williams, to the cabinet ministers of the country, finance ministers of the country, accomplished cricketers. I mean, the first World Cup winning captain, Kapil Dev in campus, world's best fielder, Jaunty Rhodes in campus, VVS Lakshman in campus on cricket, Vijay Amitraj, the man from India to be at the helm of tennis for a very long time, had been here. The actors, the corporate czars, the entrepreneurs, a whole range of people have been here, including you, Kerrie, who have connected with people, from different parts of the world. And I think yesterday's program of yours made the audience, or probably when I look at the pictures, they were curious, they were confident, and they were happy. And I think most of them came back and connected with you online and offline. That's what face-to-face does in campus.
Yeah, and you talked about them being noisy. During the session, they were really quiet, really, really quiet. But then as soon as they had the opportunity to ask questions, they were very insightful questions and very open-hearted questions. And that's what really stood out to me. It's like, oh, we're really talking about stuff that matters. And so I think it was in the second session where I got them to stand with me and breathe, do a breathing exercise, because it's something that we don't think about until I think we're at that point of high performance. And if you don't manage your breath, if you don't understand how to make the most of it, then you're just not operating as best as you can, and you get fatigued more quickly. And so then that sparked a story for you. And, we were having a cup of tea, and then you told us a story about a certain guest that you've connected with, and the cup of tea that you had. And
interestingly, I'm blessed. I end up meeting a lot of students day in and day out. I also get an opportunity to interact with some of the very accomplished men and women from across the globe. There are memories very close to my heart, and there are learning lessons, nuggets that I have learned from different people of all walks of life. One thing that I'll cherish always is my meeting with the god of cricket, god of Indian cricket, Sir Sachin Tendulkar. I had the opportunity and honor to meet him. And when I met him, I didn't see the person whom I saw in the stadium. I didn't see the person whom I saw in the television. I didn't see the person whom I read in the newspapers. Here is a man with so much of humility and at the same time with a childlike curiosity. And that moments were very precious, and those conversation is always close to my heart. In fact, I asked him this question. Sachin, every single day when you go to office to him is going into the ground where 50,000, 70,000, 1 lakh people in the stadium, and there is a 1 billion population which hopes and wishes to see him get century after century, even though he has got tons of centuries, but still every time he is out, they wanted him to get centuries. So there was like enormous pressure from the expectation he has set, very high standards. And parallelly, you have the commentators who have a profession to identify the errors a person makes and talk about it.
Wow.
And you've got the writers who have to write about things which we have not seen, things which they believe they have seen, write about it. And when you go to a restaurant, to any place, there will be somebody who will pop in and ask you, hey, you played that shot, maybe like, when is your next century? You're constantly on scrutiny.
Yeah.
And there is no space for you. And your space happens to be managing that pressure. How do you manage this kind of a pressure day in and day out for the last 25 years, playing the highest level of cricket at the highest competitive space? Because every single ball that is bowled to him is to get him out.
Yeah.
That's the agenda. And everybody around him wants him to get a century. And critics are there with their knives. How exactly do you manage that kind of a pressure for the last 2.5 decades? He smiled and said, each one has got a role to play. I have my role to play. I know only cricket. I focus only on cricket. Oh, but how do you keep away from the noises that is around you? It's always possible for us to get distracted or probably blurred a bit. How is that you are able to do this? For which his response was, well, I do breathing exercises. And when I get into the ground, I switch off and I focus only on one thing: the hand, the wrist, the ball, and that line from the bowler is what I look at. And everything else is completely blurred off to me. I have that razor focus that I have, and I keep constantly improving that. Yes, mental toughness is very important, and at the same time, focus is equally important. And in today's world, with the generation that is growing, the only thing that I need to tell them is focus, stay away from the distractions. It's easy to get distracted and lose focus. If you have focus, and if you're consistent with your focus, and you create the right kind of habits, you have to achieve what you wish to achieve. If you look at talent and habits work better than talents. Talents take you to a particular level, but the right habits take you forever.
Yes.
And to me, I think that was the learning that I learned from Sachin Tendulkar. We all call it as pride of India, but he always made sure that it was his personal responsibility in delivering excellence whenever he walked into the crease. And that happened out of sheer practice and a habit that he has cultivated. And today, even though he has not been playing cricket for, retired 10 foot, he is retired from cricket 10, 11, 12 years ago. But in a veterans competition, he comes and plays exactly the same way in which he played 14 years ago. So after scoring hundreds, that's the kind of person I've seen, and that's the kind of learning that resonated with me for a long time.
And to add to that, you reminded me that you did the mental fitness coaching program with me.
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
And so one of the core habits that we developed was focusing on breath. And so while we are surrounded by distractions, that's one thing that nobody can take away from us, is that ability to just drop down into a focus on our breath. And so it's powerful to think about him walking into that stadium with 50 to 100,000 people all shouting, cheering or booing, like all kinds of distraction, surrounded by distraction. It's such a really powerful picture. But then he's focused on his breath and then the ball.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Really powerful.
I think you should teach the audience the box breathing that you always suggest people to kind of learn.
Yeah.
Please do that.
There's so many different breathing exercises that we can do, but one that you can easily remember is called box breathing, because if you just picture a box where you just count 1, 2, 3, 4 across, which is like breathe in for 4 and then hold for 4 and then breathe out for 4. And of course, I'm going a little bit faster, and then hold for 4 again. So there's the box. And so we did that a few times yesterday in the classroom, and you can see everyone was just smiling, and you just feel more free when you've just taken that moment to focus on your breath. So however fast you want to count to 4, but it's good if you can go slowly. And I noticed that as I developed that, I was able to breathe slower and longer when I was swimming. It helped my stamina in swimming, helped my stamina in running, and then it also helps refocus when there's distractions, whether it's in a crowd or whether it's like on the phone, to just reset. What do I want to focus on now? Yeah. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. Good one.
And I often recommend a TED Talk called Breathe to Heal, which is Max Strom. It's a TED Talk in the US. Really, really powerful. He travels the world teaching people how to breathe. This thing that we just take for granted, that is powerful when we utilize it well. Yeah, so I brought along a few surprises for Dr. Ram. So the first of all, the journal. This is my first book, and this is what I offered the students yesterday. And I see even now you have pen and paper. So not many people are using pen and paper to think things through, to write. So is this a practice that you've always had?
I always strongly believe that when you're writing something, it happens. So I belong to that tribe who still writes, but I've also adapted digital writing.
Yeah.
This generation is a born digital generation. And digital natives, we call them as.
Yeah.
So they do everything on their phone.
Yeah.
But when the phone loses its battery, they also lose their battery. The challenge is this generation is using digital, no doubt about it. But I think writing connects to your head, and that makes things happen, is something that we should not lose track with. We could be digital. We could be digital natives. We could probably use digital the way in which we want, but still writing is something that is precious. Thinking is also equally precious.
Yes, yes. And they go together so powerfully.
Exactly.
Yes. And you are a very thoughtful gift giver. So I asked someone yesterday who chose the beautiful shawl that I was presented with on stage yesterday, which just happened to be perfect colours for my dress, for my earrings. And I was told that you actually bought that. Yeah. And the lovely gift that you sent me home with last night was a journal. Yeah. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because we're talking about the value of writing down thoughts. So what prompted you to buy that gift for me?
Well, you're from a different continent, culture. So I thought, let's bring something that is part of our culture. That was what the shawl was all about. And the book was, you are an author, so by default you are a writer, and you always needs paper, journal to kind of write. So that's how it came up. And it also came up with a water bottle, if I'm right.
Yes.
Yeah. So you should never be thirsty. You should be hungry. You should never be thirsty. So the water bottle is presented.
Very important to stay hydrated, especially in warm weather. So I would like to give you a copy of my second book, which is Lifting the Lid on Quiet Achievers. Now, you are a regional achiever also. This is success stories of regional entrepreneurs from across Australia. But it's the thinking that I know you'll appreciate. It's not, these stories are actually 15 years old. I published this at the end of 2009. This was 2008. And so everyone in the book, their stories have evolved. They've gone and done some amazing things since then. And I think you might recognize the face on the front cover.
Yes. So
here's Nathan Shooter, who came with me in 2017. Yeah. And so, of course, his story has developed so much. And last weekend, he was hosting the first the National Indian Film Festival of Australia. And so Nathan did an amazing job hosting that. Some opportunities that maybe people thought was for city people. I think you've had that kind of hesitation, or people have questioned you because you're from a smaller place.
Okay. You cannot change opinions and thoughts. Rather, you can impact their thoughts with your deeds.
Yes.
All of them whom I've spoken to you, who had been on a learning curve to the campus, came in, even though we are not in Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, it's in Coimbatore. But interestingly, Coimbatore is an entrepreneurial city.
Yeah.
And this state promotes entrepreneurship in a very big way in the last 5 decades. Coimbatore is in a state called Tamil Nadu, which promotes entrepreneurship in a very big way. We also have the country's maximum number of incubators. There are a lot of startups which are emerging. Of course, Bangalore is close by. They also do exceptionally well. This city is known for their entrepreneurial initiatives. The knitted garments that you wear, which are from the West-grown brands, are manufactured here.
Yeah.
Automobile sector, the speedometers to the horns come from this city.
Okay.
The world is using wet grinders, got invented here in this place. So I can go on that particular space on how exactly entrepreneurship and innovation happens here.
Yeah.
But we as a state is growing because of the innovation that entrepreneurs have taken, not just now in the last 5 decades or 6 decades or 7 decades, and have made the city or made the state grow well. Interestingly, the maximum number of women workforce in India happens to be in Tamil Nadu.
Right.
And maximum number of women engineers are from Tamil Nadu.
Wow.
So entrepreneurship is part and parcel of our growth, and that's what makes us grow every step in our lives. And regional, state, national doesn't make a difference here. As a country, we are the world's capital for entrepreneurship. In the West, they speak a lot about entrepreneurship and they showcase a lot of entrepreneurs. But here, India provides more entrepreneurs than the jobs that we have.
That's fantastic. I can see why we have such and growing relationships in Australia, India. And even 2 days ago, I met some Australians in the hotel who are partnering with a company here. So entrepreneurship in Australia and Coimbatore is connecting and working together. So I love that. And I think sometimes people think that because something is coming from a smaller place, it's somehow less than, but it actually can really be the space to grow and innovate and create together. So so I love that we have that shared appreciation for anything is possible, no matter where you come from. So lovely. Thank you. And of course, you have Do Talk to Strangers from 2017.
Thank you.
The Do Talk to Strangers travel toolkit. I don't think I had that before.
Thank you.
This is for people that say they don't have time to read.
Thank you.
But what we shared with the students yesterday,
How to talk to strangers.
How to talk to strangers to decrease anxiety, build confidence, and make a bigger difference in the world. So, of course, that is so relevant to entrepreneurship and education because when we connect, when we learn together, anything is really possible. And I have one gift for you that there is no other copy of it in the world. This is the world first, and I will create more, but the very first asking model pen.
What's that? Asking model
The
pen?
asking model from Do Talk to Strangers is now on a pen, and this is the only one that's in existence so far. So
Thank you.
you can enjoy writing with that.
Thank
but the asking model is the core, how to connect with anyone anywhere. Starting with
gratitude.
Yes, and it starts with awareness and ends with gratitude. So there's a lot of shared gratitude here. So thank you for chatting with us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure connecting with Kerrie, and that too when it is in our own hometown. Pleasure is all ours. Thank you, Kerrie, for making it here.
It's so good to be here. No surprise that I'm in Coimbatore more than anywhere else in India.
Thank you. Thank you for making it again. This is the 3rd time.
It is the 3rd time and it's not the last.